partisan politics in like my bully pulpit that I have here, but I am the advisor on campus for the college Republicans, which is ironic because I'm actually a lifelong Democrat. But in the interest of like bipartisan cooperation and being kind of a middle of the road dude, I'm the advisor for the college Republicans, and they are having an event next Wednesday that they wanted me to tell everybody about. Is it Sharon Grove? Your local assemblywoman here, I'll pull it up in a second, is having a lunch here on campus. That anybody that wants to come and meet your like assemblywoman. So, like for those of you who are not aware of how like state politics works, it's just like a mini version of national politics. You've got a congressional sort of congressional representative, which is called the assembly in the state, and then you've got a senator that represents you at large from the entire state. And there's actually no, I take that back. The Senate is different; it's just a wider territory. But you've got two different representatives, and Ms. Grove is currently your assemblywoman. I believe she's actually up on her term limits and running for Senate now, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. That's correct, right? Yeah. So she's running for Senate right now in the state Senate, and she's been your assemblywoman, I believe, for the last 6 years. So she's having a nice little meet and greet lunch at the Student Rec Center in the Solario room at, I want to say 1 o'clock next Wednesday, but I've got the flyer that I posted on. Blackboard, so let me pull it up quick and make sure that I've got it right. Megan, you're nodding like you know these things. What's her first name?
It is Sharon.
That's what I thought. I thought I remembered correctly, but I want to make sure.
Shannon.
Wait.
Shannon.
It starts with an S, yeah. Shannon? Okay, yeah.
That's where my friend works for her.
Jake?
I do know Jake.
Tomasi?
The bartender?
Yes.
Likewise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He actually his day job, as it were, is working for Assemblywoman Grove as well.
Yes, I see him on campus sometimes. I think one of my other friends does too, though.
He's the president of the College Republicans.
Okay.
If you're not a Republican, don't hold it against him. He's a really nice guy. And if you are, hold it against him because he's a really nice guy. Okay, let me just show you where I put the flyer, and then we'll get started with the lecture. Okay, so under content and the same place where I put that flyer about the financial seminar, other materials, we've got Shannon, it was correct. Emmanuel, you win the, Ms. Grove first name sweepstakes. Wednesday the 21st, noon, not 1. It's noon in the Solario room at the Rec Center. And I told Jake that I would pass this out and tell everybody about it. So there's the flyer. Sorry, thank you. And just so that you guys don't think that I am overly that I am overly Democrat, since I am indeed the advisor for this group, and I want to be a good advisor for the group. Helping the group trumps my particle. No pun intended with the name of that candidate. But I told the students if it's somebody that's not really far to the right, if it's somebody that's sort of a candidate that I can believe in, that I will campaign against whoever the Democrat is, and help them get somebody elected. So I know that Jake works for Shannon and is no doubt keen to see her win her Senate bid. There's some other candidates that I told them we could focus on. So lest you think that I'm just the advisor and I'm undermining my own students in their club, I will help them with whoever they want to get behind. So it may be Shannon, it may be somebody else, but all of you, whether you're Democrat or Republican or Green or Libertarian or anything else, feel free to come by. You know, the nice thing about our representative democracy is that the representatives are representatives of everyone, regardless of whether you agree with them politically or not. So you're welcome to come by. I'm sure it'll be a good event. So please come by. So that's that. And now to the lecture. Internal analysis. It's interesting teaching this class after, the more years that I've done it. I actually spent a lot of time this summer to change the lecture materials. They're significantly different than they were the last several years that I've taught the class, but the subject matter is really no different. It's strategy is strategy, and it doesn't change that much from year to year. And it's been interesting this year. I really, like I told you guys before, I need to be a little bit more judicious about how I use my time, and I really need to focus on publishing. So yesterday, when I would normally kind of go over the slides again, I spent 11 hours working on a paper that I need to resubmit to a journal for publication, and I have not looked at these slides since Sunday or Saturday. I think I went through them on Saturday and made a few notes for myself, but it's kind of fun to actually just sit here and have a conversation with you guys about the slides rather than being really focused on what the presentation is. So we've got a longer, the semester's a lot longer than quarters, so I've actually, let's see here. I want to do that, P, extend. Try this again. There we go. So it's interesting to just kind of have a conversation about the slides here. So we talked about external analysis last time, and again, just to sort of reacquaint you, you remember we've got that strategy diagram where mission, vision, goals, or objectives are here. Your strategy diamond with, hey, D, come on in.
I don't want to interrupt.
No, you're good, man. This is my colleague, D. This is the second announcement that I have, but he's going to have to wait for about 30 seconds.
All right.
Maybe one. No, have a seat, man.
It's not
wait
hot.
outside. Yes, it is hot in here. I can't do much about that. And then you got your strategy diamond here with the arenas and differentiation and all that, remember? And then up here, we've got a whole bunch of stuff about the environment to analyze. And then we've got down here a whole bunch of stuff about management and leadership to analyze. Most of the next several weeks are going to be up here in this upper right-hand corner. And we talked about external stuff, everything external to the firm in your industry that's going on last week, and this week we'll talk about stuff that's internal to the firm. But before we do that, I'm going to have Dee come in and tell you about a survey that he is administering. And this one, just like the one that I gave you guys last week, and I do have the list of ID numbers back from Gloria now, so I may not be able to get to it until this weekend, but I've got them. I will update it soon. This one's going to be worth 10 points of extra credit, and I will let Dee explain what it is. Do you have a question?
I did mine, but for some reason when I was going to enter my code on it, I went to the next. But I took a picture then.
That's fine. Yeah, give me the picture. That's fine.
I took a picture. I did do it.
Just forward me the picture on email. That'll be fine.
Perfect.
Dee, you've got the stage.
Yeah, I will make this very briefly. I think I know many of you guys. So basically, we are working on one survey, and we would like to get some kind of ideas in the beginning before we send out to the small business owners. So we would like you guys to try out those survey questions. So you might want to think about maybe just pretend to be a small business owners, or maybe you have family members who are small business owners. You can, try your best to answer most of those questions, and also, I think I will send out a link to them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to send the link to me, I can forward it, or I can give you
Right.
the list of student emails.
Right. How about this? I will send you a link, and you forward that to the audience here.
That'll work.
Yeah, and also if you make sure you know how to get your X credits, right? Yeah. All right, and I have 2 printouts. I'm going to just let you briefly read that through, and once I finish, just give them back to your instructor here. All right. Do you have a question? No. Questions? Do you have a question?
I already have done the link.
Yeah, you may have done that. You don't have to do that. I think.
Yeah, this is a new survey.
Right.
So the first one was worth 5 points.
Yeah.
This is a new one. It's longer than the first one, so this one's worth 10.
Right. So some students will. I know that some students are taking both yours and my class. And your class here and also my class later. So you don't have to do that twice. So I will also offer extra credits in my class too. And Dr. Wu will come in my class later to announce this issue. But if you are taking both of our classes later on, you can just use one submission to get credits, X credits.
Yes, but technically, there's certain bureaucratic ways that you need to do things when you're doing research in a Division I university. Really, in any university, but the bigger the university, the more rules there are. And technically, I have power over all of you because I control your grades in this class. So I can't make you fill out a survey that is in my own personal interest. Like Dee said, the fact is, this is a joint effort between the two of us. So if any of you feel uncomfortable in some way filling out that survey, you can let me know, and I will give you an alternate assignment to do for 10 points of extra credit. But technically, I am not asking you to do this. Dee is.
Right.
That's why he's here.
Yeah, so you blame me, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, okay? And I will try to find an accommodation for you guys. And I think I'm done. And,
Unless anybody has any more questions, I think that's it. We'll pass back the model of the survey, and I will get the link from Dee and forward it to you guys in the next couple of days.
yeah, it's pretty warm classroom, so make sure
Yeah.
you have water.
Well, it's warm in here, and they had gotten the air conditioning out there working,
Oh yeah.
but then it was so loud that we couldn't hear ourselves in the classroom. Had to close the door, which kind of defeats the purpose of the air conditioning. And now it's back off again, so we can hear ourselves, but we're all sweaty.
I see.
If it's not one thing, it's another.
All right. Sorry for that heat.
You can go. You don't have to stay here.
Thank you. Bye.
So yeah, I've got the student ID numbers, like I said, from Gloria. If for some reason the student ID number didn't work, like was the case with, hang on, Stephanie, right? Damn, no, Maria. Well, yeah, but you're not in the middle on my list because I put it together before I saw exactly where people were sitting.
I've always sitting here.
Yes, but I was sitting at home when I put together the map, okay? I just wrote down when I was in here which group is in which set of desks, and then I put the pictures in the best I can remember. So, technically, you are sitting in the place where...
I'm always sitting here. So technically, I'm going to change that.
You know what? Maria, just for you, I'm going to move these 2 pictures right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Huh?
I really appreciate it.
No, there's several other people who are not in the right place, but I'm not going to spend the whole time. Like if I get it right and I don't mess up your name, then I don't need to change it. Okay.
Can you remember me?
Maria.
Yes.
Yes, I will do my best.
Thank you.
Okay, so internal analysis. So we've got here sort of a way of conceiving of decisions that you make about what to do inside your company and what to have someone else do as a vendor for you. Excuse me. We're going to talk in the following slides a little bit more about the resources that you have access to, both tangible and intangible, what those allow you to do in terms of capabilities, which of those capabilities you're particularly good at and you need for whatever strategic reason to do inside your company rather than giving control over that to someone else. Those three factors lead up to deciding what you're going to focus on as core competencies. And basically, you want to focus on core competencies where you have a resource which is valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and not substitutable. And the things where you do not have a resource that meets those four criteria, you want to find somebody else to do that work rather than you, because they're going to be better at it than your company is. And it will be cheaper to pay an outside vendor to do that than to do it inefficiently and non-competitively sustainable in your own company. That leads, of course, on the other side to competitive advantage and strategic competitiveness, because you are focusing on resources that you are particularly good at. I have a good example of this from my own background. When I was at Sony, it was a tough decision because it actually meant that my job goes away. But my function at Sony was, like I told you guys before, to negotiate contracts for licensing both in and out rights to mechanical rights for recordings of different songs. And mostly we used those rights to make compilation CDs back and forth, back when people still bought CDs. However, the same technology now goes as well for various MP3 platforms like iTunes, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew at that time that we, as Sony, were not making nearly as much money as we could off of that business. And I was always advocating that we should be more aggressive in what we're doing with our rights licensing. And at the end of the day, they decided that that was not a core competence. Their core competence was, in some ways, with technology, in other ways with their actual artist identification and development, but they decided that they wanted to be core competent with original artists rather than with the relicensing of the material. And, you know, they still have a skeleton team that does that right now, but basically I left and I started my licensing agency, and although my agency didn't work, there's some competitors of mine that did work better, and largely licensing is done by agencies that are outside of the major labels now, because they're better at it than the labels are. And there's no way for the labels to be sustainably competitive in that regard. So moving on, resource-based strategies. So like I said before, you want to base your strategic position as a company on things that you are able to do or things that you possess resource-wise that are valuable and that your competitors have a hard time copying or matching in some way. So the four questions that you want to ask yourself: is the resource that you're focusing on in your company valuable? So, you know, most resources are valuable in some way. You know, among other things, if we think about Cal State as a company rather than as a school, we've got lots of ballpoint pens all over the place in the school. They're valuable. You can take the cap off of them and write with them. That's something. But they're not particularly rare. You can get a ballpoint pen like sitting on a table pretty much anywhere in the city for free, just because like people give them away or people don't bother to like keep track of whose pen is whose. So they're not very rare. It's not really something we would want to base our competitiveness on here at Cal State, that we have ballpoint pens. You also want the resource to be hard to imitate. So, if for some reason we were the only game in town that had pens right now, it's not that hard to change that, because you just like call the Bic company and you pay a couple $100 and you get a huge crate full of pens. It's really easy for anybody else to do that. So that's not the kind of resource that you would want to base your competitiveness on. My personal background as a professor, the personal backgrounds of all the rest of the faculty here at Cal State, that's a lot harder to replicate. There isn't another Jeremy at Cal State Long Beach or Cal State Northridge or wherever else. And hopefully, if I continue like doing the very best I can to deliver value for you guys, that is something that's a lot harder for other schools to imitate, because no one has the particular international background and experiences and passion that I do. And then finally, there's a bit of a argument or conflict in academia about what are the 4 criteria for a resource-based strategy. Some of them say non-substitutable on this last line. I personally like to go with, is the company well organized to take advantage of it? Substitutable is something that's a little bit different than imitatable, but they're relatively close to each other, and I think this well organized factor is more value added in determining what are your core competencies, or what are your core capabilities. Okay, so identifying important resources and capabilities. So it could be skills or specialized expertise, kind of like I said with my own international background, my background as an entrepreneur. Like not every university has somebody that has the kind of background that I do. So that's one way. And take this to whatever industry you're thinking about. If you have people who have a unique skill set, a unique personality type, if they are unique in some way as individuals, that's very hard to imitate. Sometimes it's physical assets. So, Walmart has like ginormous big box stores in like the best geographic locations all over the world. They've already got, like, it takes a lot of money to build buildings that big and like rent the land for the real estate. And once they've taken that spot, nobody else can have the spot that the Walmart is on. You can have the spot across the street, but sometimes the spot across the street is not nearly as good. So physical assets sometimes, especially production capabilities like in the aerospace industry, very valuable. Human assets, similar to the skills we talked about here, or intellectual capital. A lot of times, Google is a great example of intellectual capital. Like Google's search algorithm is just the best search algorithm out there, and they have proprietary rights to it. Microsoft or anybody else can't copy it. They can make something similar, but they can't actually copy the exact way it works. And they've built such a good search engine that they have a huge advantage over anybody else that's trying to be a competitor in the search engine business. Organizational assets. Southwest Airlines is actually a great example of that. They got a really, really strong. Has anybody ever known somebody that works for Southwest or applied to work for Southwest? They've got a really, really strong culture. They value their employees most of all. It's a fun place to work, and because of that, like, esprit de corps that they have, like Delta or United or wherever else doesn't have the same feeling of like we're all in this together, and that's a very like good competitive asset for Southwest. Intangible assets sometimes could be a brand name. There is no substitute. If you like Nike products, there's no substitute for Nike. Adidas may be just as good a quality, Reebok, whatever. If you're a Nike person, you're a Nike person, and nothing is going to be as... There's only one Nike. That's an example of intangible assets. Or actually, it's kind of intellectual capital as well. Intellectual property, at least. Or alliances and cooperative ventures. One of the things that was really big in the music business that I was not very good at, because I just didn't have the power and leverage, being a little tiny agency, to be able to do this, but exclusive contracts. So, depending on which album it is and which songs they are, an artist like Beyonce or Jay-Z, like, there's only one label. And, sometimes it's Jay-Z's own label, but there's only one label that actually has the rights to that music. It's an exclusive contract. You can't get like Beyonce from I can't remember who Beyonce is with, but you can't get Beyonce from EMI, for example, if she's with Sony. Period. So sometimes your contracts that you sign with suppliers, partners, whatever, are the most important thing for a distinct resource. Competencies versus core and distinctive competence. Competency is something that your organization is proficient at doing, and it's done internally. A core competence is something that you're good at doing, and it's central to what your business is all about. And then finally, a distinctive competence is something that you're good at, is central to what your company does, and you're better at doing it than all your competitors. And excuse me, ideally, you want to focus your competitive advantage as a company on distinctive competencies. So moving on, types of core competencies, expertise in building networks and systems to enable e-commerce. So there's certain organizations like Cisco that are really good at the very complex task of or SAP, for example, or PeopleSoft. They're very good not only at the complex software that they offer, but the very complex implementation task of actually getting those enterprise systems put into place. It's an example of a core competence. Speeding new or next generation products to market. There's a lot of, I'm not sure how fast Apple is, but Apple is amazing at like creating new products that like none of us actually even knew we wanted until Apple created them. So after sales service capability, I'm going to use a different example that probably none of you know here, but as an author, as a researcher, I have to do a lot of pretty complex statistics and pretty like that survey actually that you guys are that you're looking at the copy of and that Dee and I are cooperating on. I didn't say that, by the way. It's Dee's survey, not mine. Okay. Qualtrics is a company that actually administers surveys, and there's other companies that administer surveys, SurveyMonkey, like there's all kinds of other competitors too. But if I call Qualtrics, they answer like within a couple of rings, and it's a real person, and I don't have to type a bunch of buttons, and they solve my problems quickly. It's the same thing for Globus, actually. There's other strategic games, but the Globus people answer immediately when I ask them questions. Sometimes they don't give me the answers that I want because they're very secretive about how their game works. Sometimes I wish they'd be a little more forthcoming, but I can't fault them for their service. You know, they are there immediately. If I have a question, they answer it, and that's another way to have a core competence to your business. Skills in manufacturing a high-quality product. Innovativeness at developing product features. Responding to new market trends. I think Microsoft is actually a good example of this. Microsoft doesn't really do anything original. They just copy and make better what somebody else did first. And they're very good at, coming in and stealing the spreadsheet market away from people, stealing the word processing market away from people. A lot of people expected them to steal the search engine market away from Google, but they haven't been able to do it yet because Google's algorithm is just that good. And I think their organizational culture is really strong too. Order fulfillment systems, expertise in integrating multiple technologies. They're all different examples of what core competencies could be for your firm. Here is even a longer list, and I encourage you guys to pull this back a little bit to practical application. You're going to fill out. We'll go to the template again in a second. I want you to fill out an assessment of a couple, 4, 5, 6 different resources of the company that you're studying, and rank. Are they valuable, rare, hard to imitate, and is the company well organized to take advantage of them? And to help you brainstorm all the resources possible, and for that matter, when you get out into the companies that you're actually working for later, it's really easy to, I talk about this a lot in my entrepreneurship class, you don't know what you don't know. None of us know what we don't know. And that's where innovation happens. That's where real competitive advantage happens, is when you make non-obvious connections. So to help encourage you to do that, I have a long laundry list here of different types of competitive resources. It's a good cheat sheet to have with you in the future after this class to think about, okay, am I missing something that we could be good at in our company that we're taking for granted? Jose, do you have your hand up, or? No. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure. So financial resources, organizational resources, physical resources. If I stop on financial resources for a second, some folks in here are interested in the banking industry in one way or another, or corporate finance. Banking in particular, selling money, which is what banks do, you have to have a cheap source of capital. Whether you have investments coming in from depositors all over the place, or you have a preferred relationship with the Fed or whatever, you have to have cheap capital, and if you don't, you're toast as a bank. So there's banks that do better are the ones that have locked down a particularly cheap source of capital that none of the other banks, if there's a new bank that wants to get into the game, they can't get the same price for their capital. Their interest rates are always going to be higher because they didn't get the favored status there's a limited amount of banks that can have the lowest interbank rate possible, and if you don't get one of those, then you're playing for second place in the banking business. Technological resources we've talked a little bit about. Human resources we've talked a little bit about. innovation resources we did talk about, but again, there's certain companies that are better than others at coming up with new ideas. I mean, I think one of the reasons that Google is ahead of Microsoft is because Google is really good at coming up with new ideas. Like, they have a very, very unique culture. It's not necessarily a culture that will make you happy as a worker. Like, I know they have a reputation. They really do have, like, a slide that goes down from one floor to another. They really do have, like, little bubbles where you can take a nap. They really do have all that stuff. But one of the reasons they have bubbles where you can take a nap is because they never want you to go home. Like, they want you to own you 24/7. Yes?
Well, one of my friends that works there, she has maternity leave from July to January. And she gets to bring her dog to work, free lunches.
Mm-hmm.
She absolutely loves it.
No, it can work out really well. I have known people who felt very stifled in that same environment. It's a culture of excellence, and if you're not continually striving to be better and come up with new ideas, I've known people that have been miserable there. Not to say that everyone is. A lot of people can be very happy, and certainly just because when you are not having a baby or another life event that like requires you to have time away from the office, the hours at Google are pretty long for many people. Maybe not all, but for many. But anyway, the point is that culture, especially for the people that enjoy it and like it, is just awesome at coming up with new ideas. There's nothing traditional about that place. Like, everything about the way it's set up, everything about the way that they motivate employees, everything about the way that they encourage communication and encourage activities in the company is designed to make you think of the non-obvious and then capitalize on it. So there's companies like Google that are particularly good at innovation. Reputational resources, like we talked about, there's only one Nike. That's a good example of that. Some examples of really good competitive resources. Walmart, I talked about. They actually are really good with their management information systems, too. Marketing, it's hard to be sort of competitively differentiated at marketing, but it's kind of a combination of an organizational culture thing and a hiring thing. Procter & Gamble is a name that everybody knows. Their headquarters is in Cincinnati, and when I was an MBA at UCLA, they recruited pretty heavily from UCLA. And like the best marketing people in the world want to work for Procter & Gamble. Not just P&G, I mean Ralph Lauren, Nordstrom, there's other places that have a similar call, have a similar like high blue chip level for marketing employees, but if you want to actually sell things and produce things rather than being an advertising agency, certainly advertising is something different. And if you want to be in advertising, you don't want to work for Procter & Gamble, you want to work for an advertising agency. But if you want to manage a product, if you want to really run a business as a marketing person, P&G is the #1 place in the world to go. So they're competitively differentiated because they hire like all the top marketing people. So, whoever else is trying to do marketing has got, I don't know, in some ways it's like the New York Yankees. I mean, the Yankees have so much money because of their market that they can buy the best players in the world. Sometimes that doesn't work and they still don't win the championship, but there's a reason why the Yankees have won more championships than any other team is because they can afford the best players in the world on a consistent basis. So kind of the same thing with P&G. They have the best marketing players in the world. Management, manufacturing, R&D, all other areas that could be your competitively differentiated resource that you focus on. Here's a chart, a little bit, what you can expect on the right-hand side as outcomes based on how how differentiated and unique your resource is. This is a nice graphic that David Olson, one of my colleagues who teaches one of the other sections of this class, put together on Starbucks. It's a great example of like where Starbucks is truly good at things. I mean, they have great coffee brewing equipment, but it's not hard, for example, to imitate that. Their relationships with coffee farmers, as an example, they have the best coffee in the world because they've signed exclusive contracts with the best suppliers of coffee in the world. Their customer experience, they have people whose whole job is nothing all day but to think about how to make the perfect customer experience. They really, really care about you feeling good about that Starbucks environment. The brand name, other things, those are really the things that Starbucks is the greatest at. You might think that they've got great locations because they seem to be omnipresent on it, like every other street corner, but it's not, there's other competitors that actually have just as good a positioning that way. This is a great example of what Starbucks is truly core competent at. So the next one here, next slide is actually on competitive strength assessment. I am going to jump out of this for a second and go back to normal display mode. Because I want to walk through what I want you to do in the template. So if we go back to Blackboard and open up the case analysis template, always interesting to see like the new emails that come in to my inbox that I wasn't expecting to get. And after a painfully long time, this Word document will open up and we can move forward. Okay. So hopefully you're starting to get familiar with the layout here. Scrolling down, the first section is the summaries, and then we've got the overall strategy, and then, as we talked about last time, your external analysis. That's what we talked about last week with the copy and paste exercise for driving forces, Porter's 5 forces. Key success factors is actually going to be in your own words based on your business model, like we talked about. And then we get to internal analysis. So internal analysis, this is the first tool. This is what I want you to, the slides that we've been talking about so far today. Pretty simple. Actually, it's going to be really simple because I didn't. Usually, in the past, I had a column here. In the past, I had a column here for you to explain to me why you thought this resource is valuable and why it's rare, etc. I had it flipped 180 degrees before, and I just had people do one resource. This semester, I'm changing it up. I want you to identify how many? What? 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to identify at least 5, no more than 10. So it doesn't have to be all 10 there, but at least 5. I want you to identify different resources that your focus company that you're doing your case on has, and I want you to tell me, are they valuable, are they rare, are they inimitable, that's like they can't be imitated, and how well is the company organized to leverage those? And like what I'm going to grade you on is not, as I did in the past, your logic in coming up with that. I'm going to grade you on whether I think you got it right or not. So, excuse me.
Like to do research on them to kind of say yes, they are or not right?
Yes, this is in your own words, but I would recommend sort of double checking it with some Google searches and some ProQuest searches. Like, if you think, I forget which company are you guys doing? Macy's. So if you think Macy's brand name is, like one of their main assets, go and just search on like, I would type in like, how rare is Macy's brand? I would type in that exact phrase in Google. Read a couple pages. See if anybody argues with you that the brand's not as great as you thought it was. So do a little bit of research online, but there's no right or wrong answer. There's kind of a gut feeling. There is a right or wrong answer for me, but
I was just saying,
it is somewhat subjective.
we actually put like an explanation of why we believe it's that.
Yeah, you can put it there, but the way I made the template, there's no space for it.
But we can put it underneath.
But you are welcome to go above and beyond if you want in that regard. But
Definitely will, just for you.
thank you. Because I did not do that, though, I do not expect people to. I do not expect people to do that. Okay, so that's that. Just instead of flipping back and forth all the time, competitive strength assessment, which we're going to talk about next. This is basically comparing your focus company with their main competitor. Okay, so most of your case paper is just focused on one company. This is one of a couple of areas where I want you to compare them to one of their main competitors. And you're basically just going to fill out this chart, again, in your own words. Similar to what Maria was asking before. There is a place here for comments, but there's really no right or wrong answer. I just want you to justify why you decided what you did. So you're welcome to do a little bit of research on Google or on ProQuest. Does the research confirm what I think about how good this company is at what at each of these factors? I will go in the lecture in a second to what I want you to do here, but since I've already got the template up, I'm just going to show things on the template and then flip back to the slides. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth. You're going to fill this out in your own words. I've got pretty detailed instructions here. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me, call me, or come to my office hours. It should be pretty straightforward. The thing to remember here is that these weights right here are copied. The names of the factors and the weights are copied from your key success factors up in the external. Just take them, and the same factors that you focused on in the key success factors, put them here. And the weights that you gave to things in the key success factors, copy them down here. Then you're going to rank your focus company on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, in each of these factors. And you multiply the weight times the strength rating that you gave them to come up with a score here. And then you're going to add them all up down here. And you're going to justify why you said 10 versus 7 versus 5 versus 3 here. And just a sentence, no more than a sentence or two in the comments. Doesn't have to be a lot. And then you'll notice we've got the exact same chart for company 2, which is whichever of the major competitors of your company you want to focus on. And then we've got the good old SWOT analysis, or TOES. And again, this is in your own words as well. The thing I want to point out here before I go back to the slides, no, I don't. SWOT analysis is not new to anyone in here. It's pretty straightforward. But I really want you to think about. I want you to articulate. I don't want you to just say what the opportunities, strengths, threats, and weaknesses are. I want you to tell me a suggested strategy for each of these 4 areas. Okay? That's the important thing. I want you to tell me what should your company do to leverage its strengths while pursuing its opportunities. Okay? I want you to tell me what can they do to minimize their weaknesses while they're pursuing their opportunities. What can they do to minimize their weaknesses and be as protected as possible with those weaknesses in the areas where they're truly threatened in the marketplace? And vice versa, how can they use their strengths to minimize threats in the marketplace? So you're going to list what the opportunities, threats, strengths, weaknesses are here, but then I want you to actually give me a strategy, your suggestion for the company as to what they should do in each of those 4 areas. Okay? Make sense? Cool. That is the internal analysis portion of the template. I'm going to go back now and focus on the slides. And from the current slide. There we go. Okay, so competitive strength assessments, like I talked about, you're comparing how 2 different companies do things, and this could be how they actually acquire resources, how they do payments with their suppliers, their relationships with their suppliers, how they get new products out. It could be a whole lot of different factors. I've got a nice chart here as well. It's small, but you can print it out and blow it up a bit. This is another good cheat sheet, just like the one that I gave you for valuable, inimitable resources. This is every possible activity that a normal company does in their supply chain, operations, distribution. It's a big laundry list of every possible area that could be a key success factor. So when you're coming up with your key success factors, I suggest that you take a look at this list and read through it and think about, have I missed something that should be an important key success factor? Are the ones that I chose really the most important 5, or did I miss something? I'd go through this list when you do that. And honestly, when I was running both of my companies, I wished that I had printed this out and that I had remembered it so that I could figure it. Some days I just don't know why the company's not functioning better. And if I had just taken the time to look at this, I would have realized, oh, you know what? I'm not doing enough promotion. If I'm reading through the sales and marketing thing, okay, well, my costs and assets are relatively tough because I don't have a lot of money as a business, but I think I understand what's going on with that. I'm selling my butt off, and everybody else that works for me is too. Oh, wait a minute. We're not really doing any advertising promotion. Duh. I'm so focused on being a sales company in my second company that I forgot that we could actually put together marketing materials. We could do promotions. We could do all kinds of stuff like that. So I wish I had looked at a list like this to remind myself of the things that I've got blinders on and I forget about it, because you get focused on closing that deal. You get focused on finishing this project, and you forget about the bigger picture sometimes. So good brainstorming list here. It's a nice slide on why different companies have different costs. I think just selecting a couple here. Economies of scale and experience curve effects are a good one to point out. Especially when you're producing physical things of some kind, or you're doing a process. First of all, there's a certain amount of fixed assets that you have to have in order to start producing. But then after that, the more units you produce, the cheaper the cost per unit is, because you're spreading your fixed costs over a larger number of units produced. So economies of scale basically, economies of scale refers to the fact that, like, if you have a large production capacity, you tend to be able to produce things more cheaply. And then experience curve effects, the more you do something, the better you get at it. So a company like Procter & Gamble has been doing marketing for over 100 years now. There's a lot of things that a new consumer products competitor can't possibly do as well as them because they haven't had 100 years of experience at how to do it properly. Some different reasons why some companies would be rated higher on their competitive strength assessment than others. Brief point about outsourcing here. Like I said before, sometimes the things that you are not core, things that are not distinctive or at least core competencies for your company, even if it's a competency, it doesn't mean you should do it. Just like the Sony example. You know, we were great at licensing within Sony. Actually, there's more profit created, there's more jobs created doing that outside of Sony than it would have been within Sony. It wasn't Sony's core mission. So sometimes outside firms can do things cheaper and better than you can. And don't forget to don't try and do everything yourself. This allows people to focus on just what they are particularly good at, and it can actually, well, I should say, you need to be wary about the quality of what you're getting. I mean, if there's always a decision you can make, pivoting one way or the other. If you're not getting good enough results from an outsourced vendor, you can take things back in-house and do them yourself. But I think more often the case is that companies try and do too much rather than that they don't have a good vendor. A slice of the rest of my world, you know, besides this strategy class, my normal job, my area of publishing and research, the rest of the classes I teach are small business and entrepreneurship. So this is less relevant for large companies like Macy's or Chevron, or which one did you guys choose? I forget. Remax. However, for smaller businesses, there's a number of great outsourcing resources. So Time, etc., Elance. Fiverr is basically like people all over the country and all over the world who are willing to do stuff for $5. And it's amazing what services you can get as a small business just by contracting an individual that's out there and enterprising and willing to do it and who is better at doing it than you. So those are some resources for smaller businesses that I thought you guys would find interesting for outsourcing. And then finally, for SWOT analysis, or TOES, the main point I want to make here is that just because this is a common tool, does not mean that it's not valuable. Every time I do a SWOT analysis for my own life, for my own career, or for the companies that I had when I used to own companies, there's always something new that I notice or that I remind myself of just by going through this exercise. So even though it's something that's not new to any of you, it's a good reality check, or a good way to make sure that you don't have blinders on. Again, exactly what I said in the template. I want you to list strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then I want you, more importantly, to articulate the strategy that you suggest for the company in each of these 4 areas. And then finally, well, not quite finally, risk assessment matrix. This is another item that I borrowed from my colleague David. I think it's a great slide. Not all, when you're talking about threats and weaknesses in particular, not all threats and weaknesses are the same. You know, you could have a weak. Let me see here. okay, Cal State Bakersfield, if I go back to just talking about CSUB again, you know, we have a number of weaknesses as a university, and we have strengths too, but we have a relatively small student body compared to the rest of the Cal State institutions. We're constantly trying to work more with the surrounding area for like the skills that are taught in high school versus the skills that are taught here, and trying to basically push down some of the stuff that we'd like to have done and more competent before people get here. And you know, if those are real weaknesses compared to San Jose State or Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, etc. But the reality is that we're the only game in town in Kern County, and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo is not going to like steal our customer base. So even though we need to get better in these areas and they are weaknesses, the likelihood that something bad is going to happen because of them is relatively low. There's some other areas that are much more important for us to consider, I think in particular, goodwill with the community and working more with employers in the community so that they feel like the exact skills that they need for hiring people are exactly what we're teaching here. I think that's more important, because if the Kern County community is not happy with us, then you know there's no reason that says the legislature has to continue our funding each year. We could be gone if the community really didn't like us. So I had one last slide here, what I'm going to get to next time. Basically, the entire day on Thursday is dedicated to discussion. I really want to start talking more about your guys' experiences, both in what you've already done work-wise and in the industries you want to go into. So we're going to spend about half the class session talking about the concepts from the lecture, and then the second half talking about Globus stuff. See you all on Thursday. Have a good 2 days.